how this freedom relates to suffering, like openness. Like, for instance, if you have this intense suffering, like almost unbearable, it doesn't help you to stay, transparent awareness, really.
Suffering is always resistance. Suffering is always the feeling, I don't like what is present. All our suffering is a variation of that feeling, I don't like what is present. It's not what is present that causes the suffering. It is we who say to what is present, I don't like you, I don't want you. All suffering, that's the extent of our suffering. And that the thought, I don't like what is present, I want what is not present, doesn't arise on behalf of awareness. The open empty space of awareness is like the open empty space of this room. This room doesn't view each of us, doesn't assess each of us as we come through the door and think, yeah, she's okay, but I don't like the look of him, and yeah, she'll do, and no, the space just lets all of us in indiscriminately. The space of the room doesn't insist that we sit here quietly having conversations. We could be dancing, we could be fighting. Space wouldn't offer it any resistance. Why? Because its nature is openness. The space doesn't have to practice being open, being allowing. Its nature is to be such. Well, awareness is like that. Its nature is openness. So awareness by itself doesn't know the experience of suffering. The suffering always arises on behalf of the self, which is ultimately an illusory self that rises up and says, I don't like what is present. In order to do that, we must forget or ignore or overlook the fact of our essential nature, the fact of being aware or awareness itself. So, in other words, to suffer we have to overlook our essential freedom.
Yeah, I cannot contain the smile, though it was about suffering.
So I see. Exactly. That is your body's confirmation of your understanding. The body just opens in relation to this understanding, and your smile is that opening of the body. Yeah, it's your body's confirmation of the truth that you've just understood. Not the truth that I gave you, the truth that you understood in your own experience, the clear seeing of the inherently free nature of your essential self.
Yeah, it understood that awareness even doesn't have a name. Suffering.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't divide.
Yes, exactly. Awareness knows nothing of suffering. Directly. It knows suffering indirectly through the apparently separate self. It cannot know suffering directly. Now, I have to be careful when I say that. I wouldn't say that in a context in which I didn't feel safe. I wouldn't say that in a public meeting, because it would appear to be disrespectful to people's suffering, which is, people suffer terribly, so it would seem to be dismissive of their suffering, so I would never do that. Actually, I did do it once, it was a mistake, and I learned not to do it again. But I would be very cautious about saying that. But here, it's a safe environment. I know that although many of us have not met each other, I know that many of you have been in some kind of spiritual tradition for many years. You've done your homework on YouTube, so I feel safe to say something like that, particularly given the context of of our conversation. It's not. I'm not being facile about suffering. I know that people suffer intensely, so it's not a dismissal of people's suffering. I say it in the context of our conversation, and I can see that you understand it. I wouldn't have said it if I didn't think you would understand what I meant. If I didn't know that you would understand what I meant. So I think the question about darkness will take care of itself now.